Minimalism is a lazy man's approach to training. It produces inferior results for strength and size, guarantees muscular imbalances, has a higher injury risk, and is extremely boring. I urge you to stay away from it as much as possible. Embrace maximalism, or at least being closer to that side of the pendulum. Nothing wrong with being in between, but I don't want you trying to get the most out of the least, because usually it doesn't work, especially for those who are going to be in this game for the next 5-10 years or longer. If you're trying to maximize your muscular potential, or in general being the jack of all trades, I'd say there's a 9 out of 10 chance, unless you're that genetic outlier freak, that's not going to happen with minimalism. You have already accepted a compromise. So, the first thing I want to bring to your attention is the topic of torso or limb dominance. How do you know where you stand? Well, when you go down the minimalist path, it'll be very apparent within a year or two. Whereas if you never did, if you isolate the proper way from day one, you might not even know. Or perhaps it's going to be way later on into your lifting journey where perhaps you're an advanced lifter, then now you can see, okay, yeah, I was kind of skewed towards one aspect. But if you only did the big 3, or only did the big 5, or never did variations of those, or you never hit your muscles from different angles, which is essential for hypertrophy. Let me say this bluntly, you have to do this in a bodybuilding context. You can't just do flat. You need to change the movement pattern itself, whether it's vertical or horizontal, then modifying the grip widths and body positioning. You have to treat your body like what a notorious figure on YouTube once said. Like Legos. You're a Lego man, customizing your physique, putting on muscle in the right places, developing that symmetry, which is precisely what the old school bodybuilders did. Listen to Steve Reeves when he speaks, discussing how he was going for a certain look. Obviously, much of it was genetic, the broad clavicles, tiny waists, etc. But despite all that, guys like Reeves and Frank Zane, and even the golden era in general, look at their physiques compared to the classic guys of today. They don't look the same, and it's not just because of dryness and the drugs. The training style had much to do with it. So you can skew the biasing effect in so many different directions. But what I can promise you is that the physique that's going to look the best is one that is far from minimalism. Minimalism will skew you in one or two directions. You're either going to have really big arms with a smaller chest, or the opposite. In my case, my arms were my worst body part for years. They were so pathetic, and I coped hard, coming up with excuses, saying, oh, it's because of my genetics, it's because of my hypermobile elbows. What fraudulent nonsense. I'm calling my former self out. Alex, what the fuck were you thinking? What were you thinking listening to these powerlifters who had smaller arms and some natty bodybuilders who you thought weren't hands, but they actually were. They just knew how to fucking train. What were you doing? Rejecting the truth. The truth is, and it's always going to be this way, is that you have to isolate your weaknesses, man. You got to go hard on them. And you have to get an exposure that's diverse in movement patterns. It's like with nutrition. You got your micronutrients and then your macronutrients. You can't neglect any one of those. And with minimalism, there's no refinement going on. It's like playing Minecraft and setting off a TNT explosion, but then there's still all that dirt in the bottom that you gotta dig out. Well, there could be a lot of it. And don't think that you're gonna have so much TNT that you can somehow override this. Like, no. Train in a minimalist fashion, you're gonna find out really fast where you stand. Just like all those misfortunate novices who ran these programs that had no isolation work. That blows my mind that any of you guys would listen to a study done on untrained lifters saying, yeah, if you do your lat pull downs and rows, your biceps grow just as much compared to including curls. Additionally, that doesn't work if you have any lifting experience. It doesn't. You have to have exceptional genetics to get away with that shit. And even someone like me who has actually good forearm genetics and pretty good back genetics. You've seen what I pull, 4 plates on the way to chin. By me not isolating my biceps the proper way, They were my worst body part. You explain that. Is it because my bicep genetics are absolutely terrible? Maybe they're a little bit below average, or at best average, but no, guys, this is cause and effect. We need to keep ourselves accountable. We have to stop with the excuses and appealing to people who are mediocre copers, because that is what the they are. These people have failed because they embrace an inferior training system, and now they're trying to justify the end result, which is failure. You failed, mother. You didn't graduate, yet you're making videos that you aced the test, or at least got a very high grade. No, you didn't even get close to it. You're so far off from your potential. You got pounds of muscle gain. Like, I put on 5 pounds of muscle in the last 2 years. How do you think I did that? Well, for one, training legs obviously helps, but also refining my weaknesses, going all in on them, helped. And for the first time in my life, I can proudly announce that I'm happy with my arms. You see them from a guy who always complained. Video after video after video. Just saying, oh yeah, look how good my forearms are. Listen, when you've had jack forearms for a long time, but your upper arms are like, trust me, you're not thinking about the good of the lower portion. You're looking at how the upper is being dwarfed to the great beyond. And that's not a great feeling, man. So I overcame my problem. You can do it too. So what I'm saying is, don't discover the hard way. Don't wake up one morning looking yourself in the mirror and being like, I'm really dissatisfied with the way my arms look or the way my chest looks. If your chest is lagging, then you need to isolate it with some flies. That too I rejected for a long time. Hit the shorn position. Hit the upper chest. Do some inclines, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, barbells, dumbbells, converging chest press machines. Don't be afraid to do these things. If you want to hit different parts of the biceps, short versus long, yeah, you can do that as well. You want to get that long head, you can't just do the close grip bench. Look at all these powerlifters with a 350 close grip bench with small arms. The list is endless, and I see them getting stronger and stronger, still saying, oh, it's because of my genetics. No, it's not. It's not. It is not your genetics, motherfucker. It isn't. Listen, dude, it isn't. What? You think it is? No, it's not. Get it through your head. You're the problem. You did this to yourself. Don't isolate. You don't hit your muscles from different angles. You train like a minimalist. Take some accountability. Stop with the excuses. Stop. Enough is enough. You either want to maximize your muscle gains or you don't. Is that simple? If you're satisfied with a compromised physique, great. More power to you. I'm happy for you. But if you know in your heart, you feel it, that something is off, then swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. Get these gains. Train like how most bodybuilders train, because that's another thing. If you do some actual research, you will discover so quickly. You will discover within the next hour or so that none of these hypertrophy enthusiasts train in a minimalist fashion, natty or enhanced. That tells the entire story. You know what guys do when they're trying to blow up their biceps? They don't do 3 sets of curls at the end of their upper body workout, which I've been guilty of doing. No, they oftentimes include an arm day. Is that logical? You tell me. Like, let's break this down for a second. You're trying to grow your arms, featuring biceps and triceps. They're proportionally lagging to the rest of your physique. Yet, you train them after you fatigue yourself like crazy from all these compound movements, in which you didn't even maximize the stimulus to begin with, because by design, they're compounds that will work the primary muscle. So when you do a bench press, the chest is the primary mover. The triceps aid secondarily, but we can't escape the fact that it's mostly chest. When you work your back, it's mostly your back. Your biceps, the elbow flexion part, that's not what is allowing you to pull hundreds of pounds. Otherwise, you'd be able to curl a similar amount. But no, oftentimes, it is entirely realistic to have a 3-to-1 ratio. Like, this could be the norm, where you're rowing 300, curling 100. So if we know for a fact that these mini muscles that do not count as a full set when you hit compounds are being half-assed at the end of a routine, well, doesn't it make sense to have your own day towards that muscle? Or at least start off with it. Maybe you can pre-exhaust. I did that for a while. Sure, it might affect your performance a bit, but you don't have to do this forever. Like even running a specialization program, you up the frequency for your lagging muscles, lower the frequency on your good muscles. You up the volume on what you're trying to prioritize, maybe lower on others, or keep it the same. Like, you know how guys are always talking about hitting your muscles twice a week? Oh, I'm going to do a push-pull legs and upper lower. Well, what if some of those muscles are already overdeveloped? Can't you cut it back a bit and do more on the lagging side? In my case, what am I doing? Push-pull legs off, upper arms off, repeat. That's my current split. Now, before someone says, what about legs? How come you're not hitting those twice a week? I don't have to. Volume is equalized. I'm hitting everything I need to hit on that day. And instead of hitting legs on the Friday, I'm getting an arm workout in. And you know what? My performance is affected like this. Because the upper body day is, in reality, a chest and back day. And that's what should be expected out of most people. Unless you're an extreme outlier arm genetic freak, which is the minority. That's why the torso dominant epidemic is more popular than the arm dominant epidemic. Even guys who've had big arms for a long time, when they start hitting their chest the proper way, which is usually them doing half rep bullshit, like when they actually do full ROM, they get stronger. Like usually they don't have issues. It's a lot easier to correct a weaker chest than weaker arms. I'm just saying. So in reality, you can say this video is a torso versus limb dominant kind of segment, but really I'm addressing everything, right? So check it. You have a lagging muscle. You put extra focus on it. Seems like a smart option to me. Just like when you have a lagging lift in a strength training context, you increase the specificity. Does this have to really be explained? Like, how far have we fallen that something as basic and common sense as this has been thrown out the window? It blows my mind. And after all this time, I'm realizing just how simple these solutions have been. Guys are like, oh, I've tried everything. No, you haven't. You haven't tried the elephant in the room. You're looking at all the extreme little niche ways of training when there's something that's even simpler. So basically, bodybuilders are all maximalists. Okay, you might find a rare exception, but that is exactly what they are, and you're not like them, because if you were, you wouldn't be watching this video. But you are, because you're frustrated, just like I was, just like basement bodybuilding was, just like some are still frustrated, yet have yet to acknowledge why that is so. Therefore, I urge you to look at how actual bodybuilders train. See if it resembles what a lot of minimalist gurus are recommending. I can promise you it's nothing alike. You will see much more than the big three. Sometimes it's not even done, or at least it's going to be variations, because I think there is value in this, right? But it's about taking the fundamentals and improving them ever so slightly for mass. So in the case of back squats, I think heel elevation is better for quads. You're still doing a back squat. I think high bar is also better for this purpose. SSB is king. For the bench press, I like Larson pressing, which actually does come from the powerlifting world. In general, I like minimizing leg drive. I like having retraction and protraction instead of holding maximum retraction. Also, we don't want the biggest arch of which you're capable of. We also don't want the widest grip. Narrower the better. Deadlifts, I sincerely think that, because there's this big debate, what's better, conventional or sumo? They're both overrated for hypertrophy. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. The conventional and sumo deadlift are both overrated for hypertrophy. Fact. If you're trying to grow, the RDL is a much better choice on every possible level. You can watch this video to learn why. And it mostly has to do with stimulus to fatigue and directly targeting the posterior chain, which is why we do hip hinges in the first place, okay? So that's the big three right there. I just gave you better alternatives. Then even when we talk about RPE, most bodybuilders stay within 0 and 2 reps in reserve. They're not at 3 to 4, even though you could get similar gains if you do more volume. But that's more so a powerlifter approach, honestly. Like, I did a lot of that myself during my bulks, and you know what? It worked great for strength. I didn't find it offered any advantages for hypertrophy. I just had to do more sets. So if you like that, you do you. I'm not saying it's a bad approach. It's actually perfectly fine. I'm just saying when you directly compare, you'll see that one is generally favored for growth, especially for lagging muscle groups. And there's some things that the studies can't tell us, like the fatigue that's accumulated from doing isolation work. It's not that high. Then even the splits, you'll find some serious customization. Notice how there's no bodybuilder who has a bench day, a squat day, a deadlift day. They don't do this. None. So stop training like that, as you will only excel at a couple of things. I often get the question, Alex, how is your general strength so high? How are you able to do a 242 seated OHP, 405 bench, 5 plate weighted dip, 4 plate weighted pull up, 600 dead, 507 squat? You've been shredded, you've been bulked. You do it all. How? Well, because I embrace a conjugate thought process, meaning I combine multiple training elements throughout the yearly training cycle. I do GPP every single week to get my conditioning up. I train my muscles in a variety of different angles, all of the movement patterns, closed chain plus open chain, barbells, dumbbells, machines, bands, chains, expander, rings. Like at this point, I basically tried everything or close to it, like because I combine it all from every possible world. I take the best from the powerlifting world. I take the best from the strongman world. I take the best from the bodybuilding world. I take the best from the calisthenics world. I take the best from everywhere, borrow which is applicable to me, and then combine it in the context of the conjugate system, if it's strength or in general, having those principles where you're rotating variations and not being married to one thing for too long, I'm able to be good at everything. One arm pull-ups plus a 4-plate bench. Like, I walk the walk. I'm showing you what's possible. So the only reason why this was even a possibility, it's not because of my superior genetics. It's solely due to the way I train. Because my is not hyper-specialized towards one aspect. And even when I go into all bodybuilding, hypertrophy is never a weakness. Hypertrophy is never a downfall. The bigger you get, overall, when you go back to that strength specialization, you're going to blow up. You're going to have PRs galore. So that's why I'm saying, like, this video is mostly about hypertrophy, but even in this situation where you want to deviate away, you're not going to be at a loss, is what I'm saying. And you know what else? Training this way keeps me injury free. Because when you're constantly addressing your muscular weaknesses and you rotate exercises when appropriate, you don't break down. Your longevity is truly maximized. You minimize overuse as much as possible, which guys like Matt Wenning have proven, as he is in his 40s still producing world-class strength. Actually beat Tom Platz's squat record as well. So I learned from guys like him. I looked at people who've been around, who made the mistakes, and I can certainly tell you that none of them were minimalists. And so since the summer of 2014, I've been training in a similar way. And you know what? I had so many guys come in and say, Alex, all this maxing out, all this heavy lifting, going for numbers, you're going to get injured. They told me that in 2016 and even before, but let's just say 2016, 6 years ago. People were laughing at my training style, saying it didn't work. You look at the elite things I've done. Look what I've accomplished as a seasoned natural. And look at the plateaus that they've had and the injuries they've accumulated. How come I'm just as bulletproof as I was from when I was younger, if anything more? It's because I train the proper way. I do it all. And I'm able to drop my ego, even though it may sound like I have a large one in this video, but I'm able to drop my ego and seek knowledge from those who know even more than me regarding injury prevention. And the key to that is a maximalist training system, specifically the conjugate system for strength, but anything that resembles it is going to be favorable in the long term. And so you've seen me max out hundreds of times, literally, never been hurt doing a 1 rep max, never had a tweak, never had any problems whatsoever, 0 from doing heavy singles. Never. And keep in mind, I'm not even suggesting that you copy this, but just to say, if I was able to get away with the most aggressive form of training, maximum volume and intensity year-round, yet nothing broke, I only got better and continue to get better, then that should tell the entire story. And if you're still not sold after that, then I basically have no more words to say, because just look at my peers, compare them to me, and see who snapped up or not, or who's still killing it. The answer is right in front of your face. And the best part is, I'm not an outlier. This could be you, easily. And I really mean it when I say that. I can back up what I say with logical arguments. These guys can't. So that's the benefit of higher size selection, doing isolation work, hitting different angles. It keeps you safe, which is ultimately why we lift. We want the consistency in the long term, everything from enjoyment to results. Which leads me on to my next point. Train this way keeps me psychologically fresh. I'm never bored with my training. I think if I train like a minimalist, I would be so depressed. Like, this is what training is? I'm stuck doing this? Like, oh my goodness. Like, considering the fact that lifting is a big part of my life. Like, I'm a gym bro at heart, right? For me to drag my ass over and do this boring shit and do so little, be so dissatisfied with the enjoyment factor, which is so key for your consistency long term. If you want to be in this for the rest of your life, and that's what I'm trying to do. I want to lift till I'm fucking dead. I want to be a jacked old man. I want to be that guy who looks better than most 20-year-olds in his 60s. Yeah, I want to be that. I want to be maximally healthy. Everything be on point. Like, I want to fulfill my potential. That's not going to happen when I'm neglecting all these facets. The only way I can fulfill my goal of being happy, of being satisfied with my physique, and just loving the process. The only way I can love the process is by enjoying what the fuck I do. Yeah, sometimes there's going to be a bit of sacrifice. It is what it is, but the majority, the overwhelming theme of lifting is, if you don't like it, you're doomed to fail. And that's another big downfall. Most people, they train in a way that they absolutely despise. So they skip workouts, and then one day, they stop showing up. And then you have the infamous layoff. Oh yeah, I stopped training for 6 months. Why? That should have never happened. That proves that you're not trained like a maximalist. Because if you were, you would have tweaked. You keep doing so, which automatically keeps you in the game. And eventually you would have found something that works for you. Or you would have discovered like, there's nothing I like. And if that's you, well, I can't help you. But when you're constantly keeping your options open, you're an open-minded lifter. You figure it out, which minimalism cannot do. You're just confined to this one box for the rest of your life. Or you're going from one minimalist box to the next minimalist box. Fuck that shit. Yo, I can't think of worse torture as someone who loves lifting. So that's the secret. That's why I don't feel compelled to work out in the sense that, oh, it's a workout. No, I love every second of it, man. That's why in the last 10 plus years, I haven't taken a month off. The max has been like 2.5, 3 weeks tops, and probably even because I was sick. You know, even on vacay, I'm doing something. I want to keep moving. So that's it. If you have workout ADHD, or you get bored easily, or you just want to keep things fresh, not that you're burnt out, this is the only way to do it, man. Or rather, it's the best way to do it. Now, for those who say, well, I don't have to be the best. I'll settle for less. And I want to get the majority of the results, and minimalism allows me to do that. Well, do you realize what you just admitted? Do you realize what even these proponents are suggesting? They're not optimizing their gains. They have already settled for a compromise, which to me sounds like a loser's mentality. You're capable of so much more. You're here and could be here easily. Like, you can do it, bro. 100%. Guaranteed. You can do it. I promise you. Yes. Yet you're choosing to stay down here. Why? I can't comprehend this, especially if you're someone who spends your days watching fitness videos and buying products. Like, you're going to spend all this money on supplements. You're going to spend all your time, your most valuable asset, watching YouTube fitness for the next couple of years, but you're going to settle for a mediocre physique because you're getting 60% of the gains? What kind of nonsense is that? The only people who should ever embrace this kind of thinking is if you're going through some really hard stuff in life to the point where you're so busy, you're so occupied, you're in such a bad place right now. But I would actually argue that maximalist training will help you get out of it. But you're in such a situation where you're just doing the bare minimum to maintain what you have. Like, if anything, minimalism should be viewed in a maintenance context. But when you're trying to gain muscle, you're going to go through a bulk. You're going to gain 10, 20 pounds of fat. Maybe not this year, but over the course of time. You're serious about results. You want results. Why get anything less than what you deserve? If we all agree, even those who sell minimalist programs, that you're getting some of the results, but not all of them, well, isn't that enough of a reason to not go down this path? Like, am I the only one who's not seeing this? Like, whatever the percentage of results are, which it could be difficult to quantify, maybe it's 60 to 75% tops. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I gave it my all. I turned every single stone, or at least most of them. The field is cleared. I gave it my best. That's what gives you true satisfaction, not only physically in terms of what you will build, which I promise will be better, but also mentally. There's that mind-body connection. And when you know you're doing the right thing, man, does it feel better than being a lazy coper. And that's another thing that I can say from experience. So that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my lengthy rant. Let me know if you want more raw-ish segments like this. And of course, share your feedback regarding minimalism. Have you gone down this trap and then regret it later? Let me know. And I will talk to you all next time.